So let's
My word.
really quickly. I want to talk about this 170-pound division. Wonder Boys people came out and they said the fight that most interests them is Nick Diaz fight.
Hold on. When you say Wonder Boys people, do you mean my management?
Oh, is that who it is?
Yeah, he's managed by Paradigm Sports Management. So really, I should have reached out to Audie Attar, Paradigm Sports Management Supremo. So what have you seen? What are they saying?
Let's see. I'll tell you exactly what they said. So Wonder Boy Nick Diaz. All I know is that they said that's the fight that they want. According to Dana White, he keeps on reaching out to the Diaz brothers, and they keep on turning down fights. And then Nate Diaz came out and said that Dana White's a liar, and he fucking only got offered one fight, and blah blah blah. So it's a lot of he said, she said, a lot of drama. But then you got Wonder Boy who's sitting there going like, "Hey, we're looking for a great fight," and I think Nick Diaz would be an incredible fight. This is who is it that said this? This is Ray Thompson, Wonder Boy's coach and father. Okay, that's his father.
Oh, I see. Okay, so his dad's saying this. Now, of course, his dad's going to look for a fight with Nick Diaz. I mean, and I'm not disparaging Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is a fighter's fighter. A lot of respect for that guy. Brings it every time. Jiu-jitsu black belt. Fought the best guys in the world. And he's afraid of no man. Got to give Nick Diaz the respect. In that fight, though, you would have to lean towards Wonderboy. I think stylistically, it would play into Wonderboy's favor. With the height distance he has, being so explosive, so fast, with the kicking style, it would keep Nick Diaz at range and he'd be able to pick him apart from a distance, I believe. Now, of course, the way to counter somebody with that kicking style is to crowd a kicker. That's what they say. If you crowd a kicker, they don't have the room to throw the kicks, but that's easier said than done against Wonderboy. But, of course, Nick Diaz hasn't fought since that loss to Anderson Silva. It's been a while since he's won a fight. I mean, it's been years since he's actually won a fight. So you can see the appeal for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I don't see the appeal if you're Nick Diaz. If you're Nick Diaz, you don't want to go out there and face the guy that just lost twice in a row to the champion. Because what do you achieve? You just lost to the guy that could have beat the champ twice. So that's not appealing for Nick Diaz. I wouldn't understand the motivation. Of course, the motivation would be, he went out there and beat a former number one contender. That puts him maybe in line for a title shot. But also, if he loses, that puts him, it's very, very bad news for him. And of course, I don't know. I mean, Stephen is an amazing fighter. He's an amazing athlete. But I don't know if he's a big box office pay-per-view draw either.
Yeah.
So, you have to weigh those things into factor when you're thinking about these things.
You got to be honest, though. Nick Diaz come back just like George St. Pierre come back, just like Anderson Silva, just like anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter. He's going to be the draw. There's only...
Well, Nick Diaz called me out recently. Did you see that?
Yeah, no, I did. Here's the thing. There's only a handful of fights, that can be these super crazy fights, and you and GSP are booked. Those are two fights that Nick Diaz can come back to, which is a huge, pay-per-view. Conor is a fight, in my opinion, I think that fight's going to happen one day because there's just too much history with Nate and him. And even though I think, in my opinion, I think Nate's a better version of Nick, I think that there's a big payday there for both of them, a huge storyline built in right there. That's a fight that could happen, but, McGregor's caught up with Mayweather right now and then possibly Habib or Tony. So that fight's not really there. There's really no big fights for Nick Diaz. I don't know that the title fight against Tyron is much bigger, quote unquote, of a fight than the Wonder Boy fight. I think Wonder Boy has more fans. I think he has more fanfare. I believe he probably has more Twitter followers. And from a stylistic standpoint,
than Diaz?
No, than Tyron Woodley, Wonder Boy.
Oh, pardon me.
So here's the deal, right? I think just from a stylistic standpoint and from a promotional standpoint, I don't think that there's. I think that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is actually the better fight than the title fight. I think both of them are really tough fights for Nick Diaz. But I think Tyron Woodley, I mean, he basically does what GSP does. And I think Nick Diaz has a hard time 9 out of 10 times with that style fighter.
Yeah, but Wonderboy is an incredible fighter. We've seen it time and time again. He's knocked people out all over the place. But he's just not that big marquee matchup. And that's what Diaz wants. It's as simple as that. He wants a GSP. He wants a title fight. He wants to fight me. He wants maybe a McGregor. He wants those big marquee matchups. And that's all he's interested in. And there's a reason on the flip side why people are calling out Nick Diaz. Because he is the name. He is, the guy that's going to bring the attention. So for Wonderboy, it's a smart move. But I see Nick Diaz as the one that's kind of in charge there. You know, he's the draw, if you will. It was kind of funny recently. He was saying, "Oh, you know, I offered to fight Michael Bisping, and I don't know why he's fighting GSP. He should have fought me. I'm the draw." And me and Nick ran into each other in New York a while ago, and we did talk about it. We did talk about fighting each other, and he said, "Let's fight at 180." And I was like, "180? What's the point in that? There's no belt on the line." He said, "No, come on, it's going to be a catch weight," and he just recently came out and said that, and that kind of hit the news headlines. Again, there's no point in doing that fight. There's no way. I don't even think the UFC would be interested in doing that. What's the point in a champion fighting when the belt isn't even on the line? So, you know, I've got no interest in that fight. But Nick Diaz, man, come on, where are you at? I want to see the guy fight. I'm a fan.
I'm a huge Diaz fan. I mean, huge. Both the Diaz brothers, you know, they can do no wrong in my mind. I think just the way they carry themselves is hilarious. They just fucking Nick is out there.
Can you remember when we walked out of these SiriusXM studios when I was in New York, and Nick and Nate were both there, and they just look like they wanted to kill everybody in the room?
Yeah. They have
I was like, "Hey guys, what's up? How you doing?" Because as I just said, I was hanging out with Nick not too long before that, and like they both just kind of like grunted at me. Nate looked at me like he wanted to kill me. I was like, "What the fuck's your problem, bud? Come on, relax."
Well, those are guys I think that they have to get themselves angry and heated to like fight somebody, and they maybe see you as somebody that would fight one of them down the line.
Maybe.
So, you know, it's, you know, there's certain dudes that I grew up in like a very Hispanic community in Rockland County, New York, and in Havastra, which is like a lot of Puerto Ricans and Dominican kids. And I would watch that happen a lot when we were like teenagers getting into fights. They would have to like almost get themselves more angry than they really were. You know, it's like they'd be like, "Yo, what'd you say? What'd you say?" And they'd start pumping up their chests and you know, getting themselves worked up and getting themselves angry and like start pacing back and forth. And that's the Diaz brothers. You watch it happen when they come down to the cage. They're so fucking angry and heated and in the moment. And then there's certain guys that, you know, you see a GSP on the other end where he's so like, he seems like he's almost like meditating and at ease, and he's kind of like, you know, clear headed. And then you talk to a lot of guys who are somewhere I think you're a guy who kind of falls somewhere in between, you know?
Yeah, I used to. I used to get very, very emotional. These days, I try and stay as calm as possible. But I was just going to say a little story. The first time I met Nate Diaz, I was in Denver, and there was a UFC event happening. I was there fight week doing some stuff, and I was scheduled to fight Jason Mayhem Miller. We were in Denver promoting the fight. And I was in the elevator, and Nate Diaz walks in. I'm like, "Hey, Nate, how you doing?" We shake hands briefly, and no conversation, you know, just like one of those elevator rides. There was a few other people in there as well, so everyone's standing there, you know, kind of looking at the ceiling or whatever, waiting for the ride to pass. And then the doors open, Nate gets out, and just as the doors are shutting, he leans back in. "Oh, I forgot, man. Fuck Miller." And like stuck his two fingers up and then walks off. And I just thought, that was hilarious. It was great. I was like, okay, I like this guy. He's cool.
Yeah, how do you not love that, man?
Yeah, exactly. He's, "Oh, I forgot. Fuck Miller."
Yeah.
Walked off, you know. So yeah, no.
They're great, man. I mean, look,
the Diaz brothers.
Did you see he posted a video. I guess he does these like, you know, Periscope videos of him like rolling joints and training for triathlons. Nick just doesn't give a fuck. Nick's the guy who's like, he's like, "Dude, I'm not going to stop smoking weed. Just so you guys know, I'm going to continue to smoke weed this whole time. Suspend me for 5 years. I just don't give a shit."
You're allowed to smoke weed.
Yeah.
If you choose to, if that's what you like to do, you're allowed to smoke weed outside of competition. The way it works with USADA is you have in competition and out of competition. In competition is 12 hours before the fight and 12 hours after, or until you've been seen by a doctor or you've given a urine or a blood sample.
But how? Here's what I don't understand. How would they know 12 hours before?
As long as it's not performance enhancing, you can smoke weed, you can do recreational drugs, you can do whatever you want, as long as it's not performance enhancing. And if you go to the USADA website, there's all the information you need on there. There's every type of drug listed, every kind of substance which is allowed, which isn't allowed. And it's all in the category of in competition and out of competition. And if it's in or under the out of competition tab, then you can go to town. And if Nick Diaz wants to smoke weed, if John Jones wants to do cocaine, if anyone wants to do whatever they want to do, they can do it out of competition.
Yeah. Well, here's what I don't understand, though, because if you know anything about marijuana testing, you have to stop smoking weed for 30 days in order for it to get out of your system. So basically, the Diaz brothers have to stop smoking weed 30 days out. But they've both, I believe, said they just don't do that. So I don't really understand exactly how the testing
that's
works.
A tricky one, because I guess, let's say, I mean, as you say, it takes 30 days to get out of your system, but then let's say you test positive for weed, but then you say, hold on a minute, I haven't smoked in over a month. Then you get into that territory of trying to